أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله Inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Today we are going to talk about some prohibitions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in Surah Al-An'am. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructed the noble Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to recite unto us certain things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prohibited us from engaging in. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in Surah Al-An'am, verse 151, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned to the noble Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that قُلْ تَعَالَوْا أَتْلُ مَا حَرَّمَ رَبُّكُمْ عَلَيْكُمْ. Say, you noble Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, say to the people that ta'alaw, come, atlu ma harrama rabbukum alaykum, so that I will recite what your Lord has prohibited you from doing. What are those things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has instructed the noble Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to recite unto the world? Firstly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that Allah tushriku bihi shay'a. Do not associate partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do not worship anyone alongside with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or aside Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah tushriku bihi shay'a. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring the issue of shirk first because amongst the prohibitions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, shirk is the greatest things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prevented humanity from doing. وَأَعْظَمُ مَا نَهَى اللَّهُ عَنْهُ الشِّرْكُ. The greatest things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prohibited us from doing is associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that قُلْ تَعَالَوْا أَتْلُ مَا حَرَّمَ رَبُّكُمْ عَلَيْكُمْ أَلَّا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا. The first thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, we shouldn't associate partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The next thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا, and we should be good and dutiful to our parents. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has instructed believing men and women to be good and dutiful to their parents, because it is as a result of the parents that each and every one of us found ourselves in this world. So it is important that we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone and should not associate partners with Allah because He created us. And it's equally important that we be dutiful and good to our parents because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose them as a medium to bring us to the surface of the earth. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala went further to say, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَوْلَادَكُم مِّنْ إِمْلَاقٍ. Do not kill your offspring, do not kill your children because of poverty. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prevent us from killing our children because of poverty. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, نحن نرزقهم وإياكم. نحن نرزقكم وإياكم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the sustenance of you, the parent and the children, are unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that provide for parents and children. So you have no right to kill your children because of poverty. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, نحن نرزقكم وإياهم, in another verse where He mentioned that نحن نرزقهم وإياكم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala went further to say, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الْفَوَاحِشَ مَا ظَهَرَ مِنْهَا وَمَا بَطَنَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say we should not go closer to al-fahsha, what is apparent from the fahsha and what is hidden. We should not indulge in al-fahsha publicly and secretly. We should not engage in al-fahsha openly and in hidden. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say we should not engage in those sin. Any sinful act, we should distance ourselves from engaging in any form of sinful act. The most closest thing that comes to mind whenever al-fahsha is mentioned has to do with sexual intercourse outside marriage. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instruct humanity not to produce offspring outside wedlock. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say we should prevent ourselves from engaging in any form of sinful act in general, and specifically, we should not engage in any immorality and unchaste life, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala want to protect our lineage and our dignity. So he says, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الْفَوَاحِشَ مَا ظَهَرَ مِنْهَا وَمَا بَطَنَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala went further to say, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا النَّفْسَ الَّتِي حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ. We should not kill any soul that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prevented us from killing that particular soul, except with the Islamic ruling. A soul that has been Islamically declared to die, that one is exceptional. But aside from that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says we should not kill anybody. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, من أجل ذلك كتبنا على بني إسرائيل أنه من قتل نفسا فكأنما قتل الناس جميعا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that when you kill a single soul wrongfully, it's as though you've killed entire humanity. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to protect the life of each and every individual, whether Muslim or non-Muslim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not given us the green light to kill anybody. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to protect the life of each and every one of us, so that we all attain the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Human life is so important as far as the Islamic jurisprudence is concerned. Islam has come to protect humanity. Islam has come to protect life. Islam has not come to kill each and every one of us. Respected brothers and sisters in Iman, that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا النَّفْسَ الَّتِي حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ذَلِكُمْ وَصَّاكُمْ بِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ. It is this that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has enjoined you so that you may remember. Respected brothers and sisters in Iman, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say He has commanded us to do that so that we may understand. Respected brothers and sisters in Iman, the next thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned is that وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا مَالَ الْيَتِيمِ إِلَّا بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. Do not go closer to the wealth of an orphan except when you are to improve the wealth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prevented us from spending the wealth of orphans. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has instructed us to protect the wealth of orphans, because orphans are so dear to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Orphans are special creatures on the surface of the earth. Orphans hold a special position in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because they are deprived individuals on the surface of the earth, and it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that has taken their parent, and for that purpose He has the right to protect them. So He has made their life so important on the surface of the earth. Hatta yablugha shudda. We protect their wealth until they attain maturity, they attain strength that they can take over their wealth, then we hand it over to them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala went further to say, وَأَوْفُوا الْكَيْلَ وَالْمِيزَانَ بِالْقِسْطِ. Anything that whenever we are to measure something, we should make sure that we measure it in full. And whenever we are to weigh something for people to, we make sure that we weigh them in equal quantity. We shouldn't cheat anybody. لا نكلف نفسا إلا وسعها. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that we don't burden any soul with what the soul cannot bear. Whatever we enjoin a soul to do, it is what that soul can bear. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has enjoined you to do that particular thing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala went further to mention that وَإِذَا قُلْتُمْ فَعْدِلُوا. Whenever you are going to speak, make sure you speak truth. Whenever you are going to speak, make sure your words are full of justice. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَعْدِلُوا وَلَوْ كَانَ ذَا قُرْبَى. Even if the issue that you are to speak is concerned with your relative, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, speak justly, speak the truth. وَإِذَا قُلْتُمْ فَعْدِلُوا وَلَوْ كَانَ ذَا قُرْبَى. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala went further to say, وَبِأَهْدِ اللَّهِ أَوْفُوا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say we should fulfill the covenant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَبِأَهْدِ اللَّهِ أَوْفُوا ذَلِكُمْ وَصَّاكُمْ بِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَذَكَّرُونَ. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has enjoined you so that you may remember. Respected brothers, sisters in Iman, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, these things that we have mentioned that you shouldn't engage yourself in, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, wa anna hadha sirati mustaqiman fattabi'uh. This is my path, which is straight. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, follow this straight path. Wa la tattabi'u subul. Do not follow other paths that are enjoining themselves to this path. Fatafarraqu bikum an sabili. If you follow these paths aside this straight path, they are going to sway you from the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala went further to say that ذَلِكُمْ وَصَّاكُمْ بِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has enjoined or commanded you, so that you may be from amongst the pious servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from amongst his pious servants. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us to be able to abide by these commandments and elevate our status in this dunya and the hereafter. وبهذا القدر كفاية والله تعالى أعلم وأحكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.